Toby and the New Controller. Written by the Buried Truck.
It's not fair.
Oh, dare I ask what's wrong? Toby chuckled to Henrietta. They'd hardly stopped at the platform before Thomas began airing his grievances.
I was trying to be useful for waiting for that dawdling Bertie to bring me my passengers, but he blamed me for being late.
Now why would Bertie blame...
Not Bertie,
Thomas interrupted.
our new controller.
Sir Charles Topham Hatt, Toby recalled, had recently resigned from his duties. My, that was quick. He only retired 2 weeks ago. I'm sure it's only growing pains, Thomas. I'm eager to meet him.
You already have.
Thomas muttered darkly, though Toby didn't hear him. Toby's wish was granted next morning. A figure in a top hat was waiting at the junction. Good morning, sir.
Stephen!
Toby gasped. There stood Stephen Hatt, who Toby had known since he was a boy. He certainly wasn't a boy anymore. He was older, stouter, and dressed in familiar garb. Hello, Toby, he beamed. I hope my outfit didn't startle you. What do you think? Oh, very smart indeed, Toby chuckled. Your father and grandfather would be proud. You are following in their footsteps, I presume. Indeed, Stephen smiled. I wanted to tell you the news myself. Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, what wonderful news it is. No need for formalities, old friend. Stephen will suffice. Oh, Toby replied, disarmed. If you insist, Stephen? He puffed off quite uncertain. He'd never been on a first-name basis with a controller before. The next morning, Toby was in a state. Delays at the quarry left him rushing to get his trucks to the junction on time. Stephen was waiting. To Toby's surprise, he was smiling. Oh, quite the rambunctious entrance, Toby, he chuckled. I'm sorry, sir. It was... Now, we've discussed this. You can still call me Stephen. Yes, Stephen, Toby replied uncertainly. Well, the quarry's machines aren't working properly and... Say no more, Stephen interrupted, holding up his hand. You did very well to get here with little time lost. Go and have yourself a well-earned drink. Dumbfounded, Toby trundled to the water column. Later, Toby was dozing in his shed near the junction. His slumber was interrupted by a great commotion as Percy rattled in, red-faced and hissing steam. Stephen stood on the platform once more. What time do you call this, Percy? He demanded.
I'm sorry, Stephen. Sorry, sir.
Percy stammered.
It was the quarry machinery, sir. They hadn't loaded the trucks on time. Mavis was late and...
Railways don't run on excuses, Percy. Faulty quarry equipment didn't stop Toby.
Oh, well, it didn't stop me, sir. Just a delayed start.
Which stops the rest of our timetable in its tracks, Stephen interjected. Toby managed to deliver his trucks in excellent time. I expect the same from you, is that clear?
Yes, sir,
Percy quivered. Toby was gobsmacked.
His top hat must not fit right,
Percy decided at the shed.
Driver once got very cross when his cap was too tight. What a clever conclusion,
Thomas scoffed dismissively.
Well, something must be the matter,
Percy retorted.
He made it sound like I was trying to be late.
I can't understand it, Toby marvelled. It's as if we have 2 different controllers.
We all have the same controller, Thomas scowled. You're the only one who gets special treatment.
Well, it's not as if I want it, Toby replied.
Well, why don't you voice your concerns to Stephen, then? Thomas replied mockingly. I'm sure he'd give you his full attention. He strikes us down before giving us a chance. Toby's face lit up. Tell you what, he smiled, I have a better idea. Listen. Stephen paced the platform, checking his pocket watch obsessively. Thomas's first train was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, a horn sounded in the distance and Daisy rolled into the junction. What on earth are you doing here, Daisy? Your only working engine deserves a better thank you than that, sir, she retorted. I was expecting Thomas, he replied. Where is he? Or any of the engines, for that matter. I believe they've struck the shed, sir.
They what?
Wait, no, that's not right. I meant they're on strike in the shed.
Is that so? He grimaced. What's this I hear about a strike?
Stephen demanded as he strode up to the shed. There was no reply.
My engines don't act petty over delays,
he went on, looking between Thomas and Percy.
This is not what I expected of you.
Thomas just glared, but Percy piped up. Don't look at us, sir. It was Toby's idea.
It's true, sir, Toby added. Stephen, Toby, call me. No, sir, I won't. I do not want any special favours. I expect to be treated just like the others. But that's quite enough, Stephen retorted shakily. My predecessors wouldn't stand such insubordination, and neither will I. Your predecessors, Toby replied, listened to our grievances. They were firm and kind in equal measure. They never scolded us without reason, and didn't blame us for matters beyond our control.
There was silence. At last, Stephen's expression softened. He removed his top hat, stared at the ground, and sighed.
You're right, Toby. My ancestors left some rather sizable shoes to fill. You and I have been friends for ages, but... I feared the others would only see me as the little boy who followed his father and grandfather around.
He looked up at the engines.
Because of that, I suppose I tried a bit too hard to command the same respect they did. I see now that I must earn it. I'm terribly sorry you're free. Do you suppose you can forgive me? We all make mistakes, Stephen.
Toby smiled.
And we'd be happy to help you become a wonderful fat controller in your own right.
Nothing more was said. The three engines and their new controller simply smiled at one another. Sir Stephen Topham-Hatt is now a better controller. With help from Toby and the others, he became a kind man who worked with his engines. Delays still happen, as they are a natural part of life, but the new fat controller is always ready to put things right and keep his railway on track.
Good morning, Toby, he smiled. No delays at the quarry today, I presume? Oh, none at all, Toby chuckled. Mavis tells me her manager ordered the machinery to be fixed after an urgent phone call. Thank you, Stephen. Ahem. Oh. Toby blushed. Sorry, sir.
Toby and the Stout Gentleman. Written by the Reverend Wilbert Audrey. Read and adapted for audio by TARDIS 9. Toby is a tram engine. He is short and sturdy. He has cow catchers and side plates and doesn't look like a steam engine at all. He takes trucks from farms and factories to the main line, and the big engines take them to London and elsewhere. His tramline runs along roads and through fields and villages. Toby rings his bell cheerfully to everyone he meets. He has a coach called Henrietta, who has seen better days. She complains because she has few passengers. Toby is attached to Henrietta and always takes her with him. "She might be useful one day," he says. "Oh, it's not fair at all," grumbles Henrietta as the buses roar past full of passengers. She remembers that she used to be full, and 9 trucks would rattle behind her. Now there are only 3 or 4. For the farms and factories send their goods mostly by lorry. Toby is always careful on the road. The cars, buses and lorries often have accidents. Toby hasn't had an accident for years. But the buses are crowded and Henrietta is empty. "I can't understand it," says Toby the tram engine. People come to see Toby, but they come by bus. They stare at him. Oh, isn't he quaint? They say and laugh. They make him so cross. One day, a car stopped close by, and a little boy jumped out. "Come on, Bridget," he called to his sister, and together they ran across to Toby. 2 ladies and a stout gentleman followed. The gentleman looked important, but nice. The children ran back. "Oh, come on, grandfather, do look at this engine." And seizing his hands, they almost dragged him along. "Oh, that's a tram engine, Stephen," said the stout gentleman. "Is it electric?" asked Bridget. "Whoosh!" hissed Toby crossly. "Shh, shh," said her brother. "You've offended him." "Oh, but trams are electric, aren't they?" "Oh, they are mostly," the stout gentleman answered. "But this is a steam tram." "Oh, may we go in it, grandfather? Oh, please." The guard had begun to blow his whistle. "Stop!" said the stout gentleman and raised his hand. The guard, surprised, opened his mouth and the whistle fell out. While he was picking it up, they all scrambled into Henrietta. "Hip, hip, hooray!" chanted Henrietta, and she rattled happily behind. Toby did not sing. "Ha! Electric indeed, electric indeed," he snorted. He was very hurt. The stout gentleman and his family got out at the junction, but waited for Toby to take them back to their car. "What is your name?" asked the stout gentleman. "Toby, sir." "Oh, thank you, Toby, for a very nice ride." "Oh, thank you, sir," said Toby politely. He felt better now. "This gentleman," he thought, "is a gentleman who knows how to speak to engines." The children came every day for a fortnight. Sometimes they rode with the guard, sometimes in empty trucks. And on the last day of all, the driver invited them into his cab. All were sorry when they had to go away. Stephen and Bridget said thank you to Toby, his driver, his fireman, and the guard. The stout gentleman gave them all a present. "Beep, beep, beep, beep," whistled Toby. "Come again soon." We will, called the children, and they waved till Toby was out of sight. The months passed. Toby had few trucks and fewer passengers. "Our last day, Toby," said his driver sadly one morning. "The manager says we must close tomorrow." That day, Henrietta had more passengers than she could manage. They rode in the trucks and crowded in the brake van, and the guard hadn't enough tickets to go round. The passengers joked and sang, but Toby and his driver wished they wouldn't. "Goodbye, Toby," said the passengers afterwards. "We are sorry your line is closing down." "So am I," said Toby sadly. The last passenger left the station, and Toby puffed slowly to his shed. "Nobody wants me," he thought, and went unhappily to sleep. Next morning, the shed was flung open, and he woke with a start to see his fireman dancing a jig outside. His driver, excited, waved a piece of paper. "Wake up, Toby," they shouted, "and listen to this. It's a letter from the Stout gentleman." Toby listened and... But I mustn't tell you any more, or I shall spoil the next story.